Yes, the sticky stuff on the floor is what I call candy. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the spoiler room, and it's going to get sticky tonight as we close out our Multiple Maniacs month with a look at a remake to the film we discussed last week. Yes, here's a surprise. Today's film is titled Maniac. Oh, wow. Whoa. Only this one here is from 2012, and this one here stars Frodo, like you may not be used to seeing Frodo. Sorry, I couldn't resist. Elijah Wood. Stars. Yes.
He's on camera all of like a minute.
Well, let's yeah. Anyway, we'll get into that, but thank you for venturing down the stairs, pulling up a chair and popping your favorite beverage with us in the spoiler room as we talk movie spoilers. And I have a wonderful panel with us tonight to discuss our last Maniac film for Multiple Maniac month. First off, he is back with us, the man, the myth, the legend himself. Mr. Joe Randazzo is here. Hello, Joe.
Hey, everyone.
And back with us from parts unknown. She is on God's time, so to speak. None other than the one and only Angelique is with us. Welcome back, Angelique. We missed you here in the spoiler room.
Missed you guys too. It's been too long.
So happy to have a female perspective, especially for tonight's film. So just like last week, we had Shanta, who I was very happy to have a female voice outside of a bunch of us guys talk about. This white guy goes around scalping women. What do we feel about that? Just. So it's good to have another perspective, and always a pleasure to have you here, Angelique. Welcome back. And then my right-hand man, or in this case, left hand, depending on the windows you're looking at here, he keeps coming back for more. It is one only Mr. Ian Simmons. How you doing, Ian?
I'm doing great. I didn't like this one either, but I'm more excited to talk about it.
I knew it.
Well, you and I are going to agree.
Oh, we might have more agreements on tonight's film than last week. So, So, Maniac 2012. Angelique. Yes. You get to do the synopsis because we haven't heard your dulcet tones for some time now. So, please.
Oh, well, bless y'all's hearts.
And it by the way, fully disclosure, it's the accent. Anything with a southern accent, it just sounds cool. So go ahead. There you go.
Much appreciated. Oh God. So Maniac 2012. Y'all know the original Maniac, the plot of that, serial killer, stalking women, big time mommy issues, mannequins. Well, this one adds on some really gross misconceptions about migraines and mental health. And throws in an almost happy ending, until revealed that the girl has a boyfriend. But anyway, let me get linear here. I was in Pulp Fiction mode. So Maniac 2012, we are following Frank, played by Elijah Wood. He is utilizing dating apps to meet women who remind him of his mother, who apparently was some kind of sex worker, who heaped some very terrible abuse on this guy, but instead of seeking therapy and healthy ways to deal with his problems, he seeks out women who enact that behavior or trigger him in some form or fashion, whom he then murders and staples their scalps to mannequin heads, which he then has relationships with. And then things go very badly, as it expected. Yeah, that's pretty much. I'm done. Yeah, that's it.
See, I missed your synopsis, Angelique. You just rolled that up in a beautiful ball so well, so quickly. It's not exactly a deep film, but no, it pretty much follows. The only thing that they did different, and if anything, when remakes, we talk about it, at least for me personally, if they're going to do a remake, give me something different, something new and interesting to the table. Don't just give me more of the same. And I will say, if nothing else, putting it in a first person POV for the film, putting you basically in Frank's shoes, good or bad, was
Did
at
it
least
before in a violent nature.
which was an interesting way, I thought, to approach this remake. They could have easily gone the other way and made it third, but they didn't. They're at least moving you into the POV, which I think adds a little bit more going, okay, this is a different take on it. Whether or not it's a good take, we'll find out from our crew here. Angelique, since you gave the synopsis, let's start with you. What did you think about this when you first saw it?
When I first saw it, I watched it back to back with the original.
Mm-hmm.
This one, of course, is prettier because it's not shot on grainy 16 millimeter. Elijah Wood is much more pleasant to look at. Like, I enjoyed it. It wasn't anything shocking because it was during that whole, like, all the remakes were coming out, but I love Alexander Aja or Aja or however you say his name.
Sure, yeah.
Because he did The Hills Have Eyes.
Yep.
And he did a very, very good job with that one. So I was excited to see his spin on it. And the first person perspective was kind of blew me away for a minute because I'm like, wait a minute, what's happening? And then, you know, all you're seeing is like the knuckles on the steering wheel as he's driving and things like that. But the first time I watched it, I really enjoyed it. I can't say that I loved it, but it wasn't a bad time. And this time, about the same. You know, it's like, yeah, I can watch this every so often.
That's a good take. Joe, what about you, sir?
I had to look it up because I didn't know. Okay, apparently he produced it. I was like, I didn't know Alexander Aja directed this. Then when
I thought
he produced
Never
it.
mind.
Oh, yeah, all good. I just had to look it up for a second. It's weird to say that the 1980 Maniac had any kind of restraint because that went out the window here. Like in the other one, you know, hey, mom might have been, you know, promiscuous in some way. Here, she's fucking in the alley with little boy Frank watching. So, like, any idea that this was going to have any kind of restraint, Lustig had restraint compared to this, which is so strange to say. I don't really like gimmicky filmmaking. I don't like when they did it within a violent nature. This at least does it better within a violent nature because at least things are happening for most of the time. And it doesn't end with a 10-minute conversation that goes nowhere and is completely pointless and could have been used somewhere else in the film. Fucking IFC.
Wow,
anyway,
you got thoughts. Wow.
But all right, and also the cynic in me, the low budget filmmaking cynic in me, likes to think that this wasn't some kind of artistic choice. We don't have to pay Elijah Wood as much if he's not on camera. He's not there. Yeah, we show him three, 4 times in a reflection. We're good. We get a one day to, you know, record some stuff. But man, this was a dog of a movie. God damn it. I don't know if it's, you know, last week a lot of us discussed the original Maniac and we were all, you know, Ian didn't like it and we all were like, you know, we respect his opinion on it. And, you know, often when we watch older films, I ask myself, do I love this movie because it's legitimately a great movie, or do I love this movie because I'm nostalgic for it, because I grew up with it? You know, I was watching it in my bedroom at the house I grew up in, and yeah, maybe that's it. Maybe that's this is basically the same plot beginning to end. The only real difference between Frank here and Frank in the 1980 version is, like Angelique said, he's a more pleasant to look at person. But I mean, just everything about this just rubbed me the wrong way, though. And not even in a, you know, it got under my skin like it's supposed to. It felt vapid.
Okay, interesting. Ian, what about you? You didn't like the last one, and you said you didn't like this one, but it looks like you've got more people in the crowd now today.
I mean, I didn't like the original version because it felt more like someone was trying to shoot a snuff film without actually killing people on film.
Mhm.
It's one of those things like, let's do this nasty, it's not from the killer's perspective, but we are with the killer the entire time. There's no romanticism of it. There's no plot. It's just him killing people. Very mean-spirited, very, very nasty. This one, I didn't like it because it cheats too much.
Hmm.
This is not. I mean, first of all, I have to disagree. There's one significant difference between Frank Zito, as played by Joe Spinell, versus Elijah Wood, which is we don't get the charming, charismatic personality that we did in the original version. There's no like, oh, I'm going to pretend to be a high society guy so I can worm my way into this world of the models. The other thing is, this isn't a strictly POV picture. There are three significant cheats, and that's what I love a good gimmick if it's executed in an excellent fashion. But this one, it's like, well, we're going to go POV for 80% of the time. But then we need to show some kind of a spectacular set piece. We'll just show Elijah Wood doing these things. Plus, he's all over this movie. This is not something where Joe, I understand what you're saying.
I was just being cynical.
Right. But this thing is like he's in this movie in flashbacks. He's in, we see him in mirrors in different creative ways. But it's too knowing a picture. While I was watching this, is like, why not just call it something else instead of Maniac? It's enough that you've got Elijah Wood. Maybe you needed to call it Maniac in order to get him in the room and say, hey, want to remake this movie? And he's like, oh, I love Bill Lustig's original. But at the point where he kills the woman in the garage, or the open kind of parking lot that he's kind of closed off, and we see the reflection in the car that is the recreation of the 1980 movie poster, I was completely out. I'm like, they're just fucking around here. They're not trying to make a movie with it.
You love that car?
No, just that scene. I was like, that's the poster.
But that's the thing. That's the DiCaprio and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood pointing at the screen. That's the Chris Evans. I know that reference. That's what it's there for. And at that point, you realize they're not trying to make a film that is going to be remembered. Maniac is going to be remembered. Maniac 2012 is going to be like, hey, remember they remake Maniac with Elijah Wood? Yeah. Want to watch it again? I'd rather watch Maniac. Now, I'm not going to be in that conversation because I will never rewatch Maniac or this one. But it's the highlight of the film, I think, is Anna, the photographer that he meets. And I think this construction of the relationship is far more believable than what they had going on in the original version. And I was that actress, I want to get her name right because I hadn't seen her before. Nora Arnezeder. She's great. I mean, I wrote down in my book It Factor because I am in fact 75 years old. But no, she's charming, she's beautiful. I buy her as this kind of free spirit who's just trying to make a name for herself with her weird mannequin photography. But other than that, I don't really have much use for this movie.
Last week, I even said I have seen it. I don't remember it, and you basically just confirmed what I said. Like, yeah, I didn't. Even the other day when we were talking about it in the group chat, I was like, "Well, I picked it up the other day when I was at Half Price Book, so I gotta justify my purchase by at least watching it once." Because Mark's like, if you don't like it, you don't gotta come on. I don't remember it. I don't remember anything about it, so I needed to revisit it. And then when I watched it today, I'm like, I get why I don't remember it. It's not memorable. And if anything, all it does this one thing that a lot of terrible movies do, where they seem to like to point and remind you of better movies. Mm-hmm. And this movie does it a couple times. There was some other movie it references. It shows you clips from The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, which I just watched a couple weeks ago. And that movie's fantastic. And I was like, oh God, remember when I was watching The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari 2 weeks ago? God, that was a good time.
The other thing, I think, as far as Elijah Wood's performance, and I don't want to put this totally on him. I think it's how he was directed and how the film was put together. Because you're right, for most of the film, he is off screen, but he is interacting with people. The problem is the way he delivers his dialogue, it sounds like he's reading lines in a recording booth.
Well, that's
And
because
they're putting it in. It doesn't sound organic to two people having a conversation. Especially Angelique, you brought up the migraines. At one point, he's out like at a park with Anna, and he like gets something triggers him, and he starts getting up. The camera gets all wobbly, and he's like stumbling back. He's like, "Oh no, I've got it's just a migraine." And I'm like, it sounds like it's happening off screen and not as part of two people having a conversation. Her reactions, I think, are great. I just don't know that they should have had Elijah Wood on set doing the parts and then just take all of that, out, or have him redo that in the booth. Say like, get this emotion, place yourself back in that park.
He was actually on set for all but 2 days behind the scenes, but he was standing with the cinematographer and the director the whole time of the film.
That's different than acting with the
I know that's
wearing the camera.
I don't know. I don't know if see nowadays he could have wore the camera. See if they would have made it like, well, I get a little echo here. If they would have made it like 8 years later, he could have strapped a GoPro to him, and then you could actually have him acting and doing basically like hardcore Henry type of
movie.
Well, see, I don't mind gimmick movies. I enjoyed this because it was at least a different take. I wasn't expecting it to be first person. I enjoyed it. I reviewed it. I gave it a fairly high rating when I first watched it. Watching it again, I still kind of enjoyed it just because I like seeing Elijah Wood in dark films. And I keep forgetting he was in other horror films. He was literally in A Good Son, which is a wonderful, like, Macaulay Culkin trying to get rid of that that Home Alone skin by doing A Good Son.
Please, mommy, I love you.
I haven't seen that since it came out. Does it hold up?
The Good Son?
Yes, it's very
it's
creepy.
That
one in the
fucking
hand
Mr.
that
Highway.
Cradle. Yeah.
Freaking Mr. Highway scene. But
I remember my cousin renting it because she thought Macaulay Culkin was the cutest thing. And we sat down to watch it, and she was mortified. But meanwhile, I'm like, oh yeah, I've been watching. I'm binge watching Jason movies like every day. Like, yeah, what's up?
but I forget that he's been in other films, but I like him in dark roles because I think he can handle it well. Yeah, I think he's a little misdirected here, but this was definitely yet where he was still in his I'm not Frodo stage, because he had Sin City as well that he was in. He also did the film Open Windows, which, if you haven't seen it, actually has Sasha Grey in it as well, which is one of those told from a computer screen perspective type of films with the streaming windows and that, and they end up cheating a bit there. And back to where I was going with this is that while I like Elijah Wood and the thought of him in this darker film, and I think he can play creepy very well, watching it again, there are a number of moments that I missed the first time watching it when I reviewed it, going, okay. Because like the first time with the first victim where he slices her hair a bit and she falls, I'm like, it would not tear like that. It would just
How
tear
do you know,
that
Mark?
Shh.
He is from Wisconsin.
I am from Wisconsin. I deer hunt.
My apologies.
Deer
You are in
hunting.
you are in the Geen country.
I'm in the Geen country. There's a secret leather bound book that was given and passed down to all us kids in the central Wisconsin. Let's
All
just put it
skin
that
is
way.
leather. Okay.
Leather. Yes, right. It is, depending on how you treat it. But anyway, so
What you're talking about, that's how Tom Savini was doing the effects for his movies, because he was a war photographer, and he would look at photos and videos of bodies being taken apart. So it does figure into the conversation here, because Tom Savini did those great effects in the original.
You did, and here, I liked the effects in here, even though I was like, the scalp wouldn't just tear that easy when he cut it. He'd have to keep cutting. She just doesn't fall and it tears in a perfect triangle. I'm like, If so, she needed to change her diet anyway because she was probably going to die for
One of my
whatever.
notes on his hair collecting
Mhm.
skills, just he wasn't good at it. And like
No.
in the original Maniac, he's very careful to get that full head of hair. It's just like, and the reason why it tore off the way it did, Mark, just so you know, is that he was just grabbing the crown.
Oh, I gotcha.
Yeah, he wasn't taking the whole scalp.
Right.
I won't tell you how I know that, but
You give tours on macabre stuff, so hey, you know, of course you do.
I feel like that was also part of them trying to be more shocking.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
you know, we the way Joe Spinell did it, yeah, it was creepy, but we're just gonna tear it right off. You know, we're gonna this is the 2010s, we're gonna be edgy. You know, that's what I felt watching this
It
movie.
was
Like, oh,
Bro
he's an
Horror
edgy
era.
boy.
It does have a bit of a feel like, oh hey, we're going to try to do edgy with a number of these shots. And again, I dug the gimmick. I understand your distaste for the gimmick, Joe's. I dug the gimmick because I think it puts the audience in an interesting place, at least for your average audience of witnessing this POV style. While it's not done the best to where it makes your audience, you still get a little bit of that weird perspective, especially when he's being a little more violent to the women, you know, or even in the conversations, you just know what's coming. But yeah, I mean, I think Wood does okay, and yeah, he did a lot of his work, I guess, from ADR, and so you can tell that here. It really would have probably helped to have him off screen and mic'd and doing the acting still, just him doing the emotions. I mean, freaking Charles Flesher did that with Roger Rabbit. He was dress up as Roger Rabbit off camera, do the motions as well as the voice for Roger for the actors, and then they cut it in later. Not saying he needs to be Roger Rabbit for this, but he could have been Frank on the side of the camera still acting.
It would have been less jarring because all of his audio is just too clean.
Right.
Yeah.
The
That's a big issue.
The audio was too clean with it. They could have noised it up a bit. And as Ian said too, they do cheat a little. That there are 3 times where we go out of the body of him, and that actually breaks whatever mode you were looking at. You know, Hardcore Henry, I think you stay in his like vision throughout the entire action film. You're always in his head. You are him. In this one, there are a number of spots, especially when he kills the older agent, when he kills her, suddenly we move outside of his body and we see him with her for no particular reason. No, that was the thing, is they do it. And watching it this time, I'm like, why did we choose to move out of his brain at this point?
Well, I think it's because he's killing an older woman, and you could really bring out the whole mommy thing by showing him.
Like at the end.
I'm with you on this one. So
but even that, I mean, they could have done like they did in the original. Like you've got a mirror over the bed. I mean, they even do that. I think, yeah, they do that.
Yeah, they do that
here. But if in that hotel suite, they could have had a giant mirror facing the bed and one on the ceiling or something. There was ways to pull that off without cheating, and it just really bugged the crap out of me. Yeah, that's all I got.
But Angelique, I want to get your opinion. Since you watched it back to back before, and you know you're familiar with the original, what did you think of the female characters in this one? I wanted to get your perspective. I'll get everybody's, but I wanted to get yours first. What did you think of them in this film? Did they seem more of your regular 2012 girls, or?
Well, I mean, I have traversed some dark areas of the internet and met people that act similarly to the redhead.
the second
one.
Yeah, the second kill. Yeah,
like the lady that he kills first. You know, that's how I act when I see some creepazoid, you know, following me down the street. I cross the road, I walk faster, You know, my thing with this one is, you know, it was 2015 or whatever, 2012. Technology had kind of advanced a whole lot. There was a lot more ways to safeguard yourself. And the fact that this woman goes down a dark hallway and doesn't feel Elijah Wood right here while she's unlocking her door, I was like, what is your deal? Are you, where, do you have headphones in? Take the headphones out. You know, just like, seriously, what, how do you not know he's there?
Yeah.
And that made me crazy. And then the second girl, I'm like, honey, he ran from the table to the bathroom having some kind of nuclear freak out. And then you asked him for, well, and then you accepted a ride from him? Absolutely not. Red flags a go-go. You know, no. And the photographer chick, Anna, was that her name?
Yeah, Anna.
Yeah,
Anna. So you have it's a, like I said, I didn't dislike it, but it's very just whoop, it like skips across your brain like a stone, you know. But she was very much the artistic type, especially living here. There's a giant art school, SCAD, and I can genuinely see like 90% of the photography majors here in this town acting in this manner, like getting close to this absolute weirdo. Yes, what he does is great, but have someone with you while you're with this dude, please. Bring up the fact that you have a boyfriend to go meet the second he's like, come in. Yeah. Well, let me call my boyfriend and let him know I'm going to be late. You know,
that's the odd thing. She doesn't tell him that she has a boyfriend until they've been hanging out. Like, it seems like for a long time.
A while.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I'm going to meet up with my boyfriend.
Yeah, like, very intimate hangs, you know, and I'm like,
yeah.
You can tell that this dude's got puppy eyes.
And that's the thing. I did like the story. I like the relationship up until a point, until the screenplay got involved, because there's that contrivance, and then there's also the contrivance at the end where he says something that only the killer would know, and she's like, you know, that whole thing of like, when did she tell you that? But no, there's a scene in the park, I think right before his migraine freak out, where she says, you know, she says something like, oh, so what does your girlfriend think about your mannequins? And he's like, I don't have a girlfriend. That's the classic line of like, I want to find out if you're attached because I'm into you. Right. Because that puts the audience in a particular frame of mind. Like, oh, she's interested in him. Maybe she's going to be his salvation, or maybe she's going to find out that, you know, what he is, and she's going to like leave, very much like what happened at the end of the first Maniac with the graveyard sequence. But no, you're absolutely right. She has this like, oh yeah, my boyfriend is at a bar. He wants me to come out. Do you want to join us? Two things. One, that happens way too late in the relationship. And two, she knows how he feels about her. She wouldn't just drop that. Like, oh yeah, my boyfriend, who I've never mentioned before, is at a bar. You want to come hang out?
Yeah, that's the thing. To me, it just felt so awkward because, like, at this point, if he's not having sex with her, he's in a close friendship with her, because it does seem like they're spending a lot of time together. At some point, this must have come up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's as if their relationship is comprised only of the conversations we see them have on film.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, look, it's getting cynical like I am.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and just the cold hard fact is both of these movies absolutely hate women. So I mean,
can agree with that to a degree.
You know, that's the thing that
at least Frank does.
Yeah, even the redeemable qualities of Anna, you've got this other thing where it's like, you know, and God, okay, all right, I'm going to preface this by saying I know it's going to sound intensely victim blamey and like I'm being a very bad feminist.
Good night, everybody.
If she
I'd like to say the opinions of Angelique don't exactly reflect the opinions of the spoiler room.
Like,
and
you know, she may have survived to the end of the movie, had, like, she said before they went to the park to see the ducks, like, dude, my boyfriend's out of town. I'm a little lonely. You want to go hang out at the park and feed the ducks?
Yeah.
And let's talk about mannequins. You know, she may have survived because he may have seen like, okay, this is futile. And she has a link to my business because she's renting my mannequins. Maybe I should not murder her. You know?
Right.
But I feel like in real life, that's what would have happened.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is that I get what they were trying to go for with the relationship, and I give them some points for trying to make this relationship seem a little bit more plausible than the first one, like we discussed before. They do until, as Ian says, they don't.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole boyfriend thing, I forgot about that until watching it again, and watching it this time, I'm like, yeah, that brings up a lot of questions like you guys have just brought up. It's just like in the real world, you know, the way that would have come up at some point, if nothing else, for her to let the creepy guy who has the mannequins know, by the way, I'm not available.
Or just naturally in conversation, like, oh, hey, yeah, you know what? I'll see you Wednesday because my boyfriend's making dinner. I'm gonna go see him. Oh, hey, did you see this picture of me and my boyfriend from last week? Like something at some point in some conversation, even if it's not the blow off.
Or even as a defense mechanism, because we all do that. Well, I have done this, you know, when I have not had a boyfriend, because some creeper dude is giving me that vibe. I'm like, oh yeah, well, my boyfriend, you know, it's a defense, you know.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought it up. You know, it's one of those things where the film's being told from Frank's perspective, so I can get the feeling towards. I get what they're trying to go for with the feeling towards women, but it's also the way they're written, though. In here, especially this one, as we've mentioned, they're written okay until the screenplay says, "Oh, we need to bring in a conflict of some sort," and so we bring in the boyfriend.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but the problem with the boyfriend then, though, is supposedly he's a dick. Which, what's that say now about Anna? You know what I'm saying? Are you saying that she was hanging out with Frank because she didn't like the current guy she's with? So, but Frank got led on, but he's being led on by her because she, during any of the conversations, at least on camera that we see, doesn't give any hint she might not be interested in him. I'm not trying to justify it. I'm just saying that that's the unrealistic part, because having been a guy who's been friend zoned many times, I know, go figure. I mean, I'm married now, 26 years. Woo, I love my wife. But when I was younger, ladies let you know right away if they had a boyfriend when you were conversing, and if you met somewhere, or if you wanted to meet somewhere or hang out, they let you know without completely slapping you in the face with a fish that said, "Hey, I have a boyfriend," to let you know right away, this is where we're going to be at in this area here. And she doesn't do that at all here. She doesn't say, "Hey, I've got my boyfriend, we're going to meet, but I'd still love to talk about our art later on over coffee." That's not how she presents it, you know. And the other people too, like you mentioned Angelique, creepy Elijah Wood, who is kind of attractive, but at the same time acting kind of creepy at dinner, goes to dinner suddenly because he's having a migraine. Still,
Mark, you froze.
Mark?
Honestly, we're back. It's like she's sitting there going, you know, it's been a great night. Been talking to you. Maybe we could go out on another date. See you later. It's not. This is not a Tinder date conversation that they have. They do not have a Tinder date conversation.
You know, it's kind of bringing me around to the perspective of Angelique of this movie. Really does. Maybe it's the screenwriter really doesn't like women. Maybe he's just like, oh, all they do is lead you on. They make you take on dates, and then they tell you they have a boyfriend after 3 dates.
And thinking about that, you know, now that I you know, piggybacking on what you said, you know, talking about being friend zoned and things like that. This movie is being mostly shot from Elijah Wood's perspective. Maybe he didn't register,
even listen to her. Yeah.
Or listen to her, right?
Any
Yep.
of her hints or
Right.
anything. Maybe it's kind of like. Oh gosh, we've all seen that movie where the woman is just talking like we're talking, but then from the other person's perspective, they're going, "Ooh, let's both eat a hot dog from both ends right now." you know. So thinking about it that way, I may retract my earlier statement.
but then that should have been brought up at some point too. Like when he acts all shocked, like, wait, I told you last week I have a boyfriend. Don't you remember when we were sitting
Right.
in the cafe? And that never happened. So we don't get the
That
sense
would have
he's
changed
not
the
listening.
whole movie had the screenwriters had.
Well, there is a way to do that too, because he's got this internal monologue, which is way more prevalent, I feel like, in this movie than in the previous one. Way more hand-holdy, and the fact that we actually see, as Joe mentioned, the flashbacks to his mother doing all this sex stuff instead of just hearing bits of it. I think towards the end in the original Maniac, right? A theater of the mind. But if they had him doing an internal monologue while he's having that conversation with her, one of the many conversations in the park, and actually have Anna talk about her boyfriend, and it's something that the audience, we're more interested in what's going on with Frank, but it lends a rewatchability factor. If you're like, wait, did she mention she had a boyfriend? You go back and watch that scene again, and you're like, oh my God, she's talking about him for an entire scene, but Frank is carrying on about something like, oh, I need to go and find these parts for this mannequin, and I wonder
It's
what.
like audition.
Meanwhile, she's like, I went on vacation with Johnny or whatever, and it's like, I
Yeah.
wonder if it's how the staple gun. Do I need to get more staples? Yeah.
It's like audition. Remember how like the first part of the movie, everything's good, and then a comedy goes crazy, and then the guy, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, has a flashback of her actually sitting at the dinner table going, well, my ballet teacher burned the inside of my thighs so I would plie properly, and then my parents abandoned me, and then this other guy was kind of a jerk and abused me and stuff like that. So she's not had this picture perfect life that he's got in his head. So is it that Frank, and in a grave disservice to the audience, the filmmakers didn't think to, let's throw just 2 scoops of raisins back into this and make it a more, I guess, realistic thing rather than some incel crusade.
Do what they did in The Voices. You guys watch The Voices, Anna Kendrick and Deadpool.
Ryan Reynolds, yeah.
Ryan Reynolds, excuse me. Ryan Reynolds, I think, was in that one. Where it's told, the film is told pretty much from his perspective. And at one point he beheads a girl and she's talking, and he talks, his cat talks and his dog talks and the beheaded girl talks. Okay. And the whole thing is told up until like the last, I think, 10 minutes from his perspective. There's little hints that something else is going on, but the whole movie is perceived from his world. But they give you little hints like this isn't actually reality. And you don't get it till the very end, to where you find out his apartment, which looked all nice, where he had the cat and the dog talking to him and that and everything. Obviously they aren't, but his whole apartment is just dirty and grimy and body parts in cases and everything. It's like, but you don't get to see that right away. You don't see that, sorry, spoiler, but near the end, my apologies. I should have.
No, I gotta find this movie.
Yeah, when did this come out? I've never heard of this.
Oh
movie.
gosh, early 2000s.
I think so. Yeah,
it was before Amityville, I think, or just after.
2014 is The Voices.
Oh, wow.
And it, yeah, Ryan Reynolds, Anna Kendrick, Gemma Arterton. Yeah, it's got a cool
one on the watch list. This actually sounds interesting.
It's good.
It's a good film. It was a different film, and they could have done that with this, but they don't take it to that level to reveal the reality of it. If what we're seeing, like you're saying, Angelique, and everybody here, if we're seeing the women as Frank sees them, at some point you need to give the window of what is actually is going on versus his reality the whole time. Because if you don't, It really does come out. And I don't know if it's that they really like they hate women or they just don't know how to write them. Yeah, maybe it's I
They're
don't
not
wanna,
mutually exclusive, Mark.
I know they're not always mutually exclusive. I always say that 99% of the time you can tell when women parts are written by women, but usually not all the time. Not saying a guy
Written by
can't
men
write.
who actually speak to women.
Right. I'm not saying guys can't write women parts. I'm just saying a lot of times you can tell because conversations seem more natural between women when they're written. They're not talking about their bra size constantly. But
Where's Deborah Hill when you need her?
yeah.
Well, and that's the thing. Did this screenwriter not speak to any women? Are there no women in his life that he could have gone to and gone, hey, look, I know it's just a silly slasher movie, but can you help me out with some of the women's dialogue here?
Or just the women's behaviors, I should say.
Or the women's behavior, yeah.
Well, I mean, I what are you guys wanting from this movie? It's a remake of Maniac.
True.
I mean,
No,
this
it's
movie
true.
they have the same opinion of women, which is not very much. They don't care to talk to women. They care
Very
about
true.
watching them get mutilated and strangulated.
Very
I
true.
mean, I feel like
naked.
and getting naked, yeah.
And
I thought it was rubbing some serious salt in the wound where they do the Texas Chainsaw Massacre climax. Frank is chasing Anna down this industrial park, and a red car pulls up. She gets in, and then it turns into Bruce Willis and oh my gosh, Ving Rhames in Pulp Fiction, where the car immediately crashes. She flies through the window, and then he goes up, and that turned my stomach, not because of the graphics, but because of the cruelty. Because I'm like, she's such a lovely character, and she, for whatever faults she might have had by sending the wrong signals or whatever, no one deserves to go out like that. It's horrible. And at the end, where I same as the original, we've got the mannequins come to life and they rip Elijah Wood apart. It was kind of interesting that they reveal a mannequin underneath, because sort of like in a Patrick Bateman sense, he never really had much of a humanity to him. He was always just this thing walking among people. That was kind of nice. But I can't get down this movie for being misogynistic or not understanding women, because that's not on the menu in any respect for either of these films.
You're right about that. You're absolutely right. You put it perfectly when you talked about the original. It was nasty. These are two nasty movies. Period.
And what's interesting is with her dying in such a cheap way. I'm like, okay, she hops in the car rescues her. He hops in a car. Why didn't he just avoid our maniac guy, if nothing else, to drive away rather than try to deliberately hit him?
I think she takes the wheel.
She was fighting.
Oh, did she grab the wheel? I didn't see. I didn't see that. But again, in the same respect, what? Just drive away, because
you're in a car.
You could have came to the same. The only thing you do is that he doesn't get her scalp. That's the only thing you lose with her escaping versus her crashing and becoming a block of Lincoln logs, and scalping her. The only thing you miss, and you don't need that to get to the ending that you get. In fact, it's more impactful if she gets away and he doesn't get his scalp. So now he's come back to his lair defeated by a woman, in his perspective.
A woman who knows where he lives and can send the cops.
Right. And then he's haunted by these other spirits because here he's lost his power. And I'm putting it in his perspective. Okay. I don't feel that way. I'm just saying from his perspective, he's lost his power because this one person has actually gotten away from him. So he didn't get his trophy. So now he comes back and all the spirits haunt him and come after him for revenge. And then, then we have an explanation of how the cops know where the fuck he lives.
He was not doing anything at all to conceal his crimes. How in the hell in 2012 or the early
street
2000s,
cams,
there was surveillance evidence, there was physical evidence, DNA. He didn't clean up his own vomit from the floor, so there's a DNA sample right there. They should have caught him after the first girl.
Yeah, especially because wasn't that his apartment? Like, because he knew her name was Judy, and he kind of followed her.
Well,
and
he was
knew
stalking
to
her for a
cut the-
while, I think.
Oh, is that it? Because
Yeah.
it almost seemed like they were the same
It was either
building.
an internet date, or it was somebody he stalked. You know.
Yeah, because he lived in the mannequin shop in the back. He didn't actually live in the apartment at all, but you get the impression he'd been stalking her for a little bit, at least a little while. Which again also breaks the thing of, okay, that one, he was more of a predator to where he was stalking her and kind of learning her patterns and keeping an eye on her. And his next victims were like,
yeah, spur of the moment,
insta, like, oh, hey. And you don't have the one difference between this one and the first one is you don't have the more separation in personas. In this one, there's not a real separation in persona. It's just, he gets the headache syndrome, and suddenly he gets more violent tendencies, but you never get a feeling like it's actually. I mean, he talks to himself a little, like, "Why do you make me do this and that?" And they play at that with the second kill, with the Tinder date kill. I'm gonna call it. I know it wasn't Tinder back then, but it's still basically the Tinder date kill. The Lost Cupids site. But you don't get it as prevalent here. And we see it classically in horror films. Mental illness is a classic. You know, just like we mentioned last week, mommy issues is a classic thing for the male slasher to have. Thank you, Ed Gein. You know, but in here, it's handled even more carelessly here than it was in the first one, as far as mental illness. In the first one, they kind of slide you into it, at least with the different clothes and kind of different mannerisms that he was trying to go for. But since it's all POV, you don't really get that here. You miss that separation in characters, in his behavior. So you lose that one level that Frank had in the first one. And he's not a deep character, but you miss the one level there. And instead you have a kid who suffers from migraines and who had a mom who just didn't give a fuck about him.
Because she gave a lot of fucks.
She gave a lot of fucks, just not about him. Oh, hide. It's okay, honey. You can hide in the closet while I have a threesome. This is going to pay for your school. You know, oh, hey, go back to the car. I'm not done banging in the alley, in the public street where everybody is.
It wasn't even an alley. It
wasn't even an alley. No, it was just
behind a post.
It was like a side street next to a building and off hours. And,
I lived in LA. Though that's what regular streets look like. Those aren't side streets. That's like the street you're walking down.
Well, that's another thing. It's in LA versus New York. So you now lost a level of grittiness that you kind of had with New York. I mean, New York was a bit of a character in the first one. And in this one, it didn't even have to be LA. It literally could have been any city. It didn't give a...
I couldn't figure out where they were.
It was Los Angeles. I lived the train station chase. I lived right by there for a little while. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because like I thought they were in New York until the agent lady said, "Don't worry, darling, all the money's in New York." And then I was like, "But you're in New York."
Right? I was like that. I first time I watched it, I was the same way, Angelique. I was the same way. I'm like, wait, we're not in New York?
The palm trees weren't a dead giveaway.
I didn't pay attention.
Well, I mean, if you look in Halloween, there's Spanish moss and palmetto trees in Haddonfield, Illinois. So I mean, you know.
And Rumble in the Bronx. The Bronx has huge mountains from Canada in the back. So come on, there you go.
Oh, you know those famous Bronx mountains. I mean, you know.
There was also in Hard to Kill. I think they had mountains in Chicago.
Yeah,
good stuff.
I just, then I was like, wait a minute, I've watched movies for a long time, and I consider myself a pretty sharp cookie. But the fact that I'm just like, huh?
Well, they don't establish it. At least in the first one, it's literally established. You're in New York. Yeah. I mean, in here.
And then the subway station, the train station, I guess, yes, y'all call it out there. I was like, this is way too clean to be New York.
LA has a beautiful transit system that nobody uses.
Well, that's what I was going to ask, Joe. Is like it seemed. I know it was like 2:00 in the morning or wherever the hell it's supposed to be, but it seemed like there was nobody there. Not only in the train station, but also in the street. We see one car drive by, and I'm thinking, like, I can't walk down a street in Chicago, and I haven't been to LA in like 2 decades, but you're at least tripping over homeless people every 20 feet. I mean, this seemed almost like, is this all in Frank's imagination or her perception or something? Because that seemed really contrived.
No, it wasn't. That's reality, because she says the line that literally my second viewing made me chuckle out loud, because she asks
Where's everybody?
Yes! She's running down the empty aisles, the empty checkout, gate for the train, and she literally yells out, "Where the fuck is everybody?" She's like, and I chuckled because I'm like, I was thinking the exact same thing. I'm like,
I guess you've got a curfew when you ain't on God's time.
So, I had the same thought. So it was just like, and yeah, the first watch I was taken in by its concept, I think, more so, and Elijah Wood than anything. Watching it a second time, and especially talking about it tonight as I think about it, like, I have more and more problems with this movie as we go along. I mean, one of the other positives I have about this is I did like the fake out she did to Frank, though. How he thought she was dead, and he puts her in the van, and he thinks he's got her taken, and so he opens up the back of the van and she stabs him with a broken piece, the mannequin hand. That was a little bit, I actually was like, yes. I cheered for her, but I'm like, okay, we have her at least defending herself. And then a minute later, you're like, she's a pile of body parts because she was not in her seatbelt when the car suddenly ran in front of a pole.
Yeah, had she fought back and done so, I would have been like, yes, okay. That's one thing Carolyn Monroe did not do. She does the other thing Carolyn Monroe did not do: die.
Yeah.
Again, this was the edgy version of Maniac. But Maniac was edgy on its own. It didn't need to point out how edgy it was.
Yeah, well, I did appreciate I'll give them perhaps some undue credit, but that moment of the stabbing was a callback to their first date, or one of the earlier ones, where he makes the cute remark, "Oh, can you give me a hand?"
Right.
And she ends up giving him a hand at the end. But yeah, but that's the thing. I couldn't even enjoy that moment because I had to cheat myself and rewind. If I'd been watching this in the theater, I wouldn't be able to do it. But it was that third POV cheat where she gets her into the van and he's looking down at her body, like on the floor of the van or whatever it is. And he's looking at her. She's unconscious. We think that she's dead. But then he's like driving away and there's a sustained look. He's looking at her face for like almost half a minute. I'm like, you're not, I don't know where or what you're driving into, but I mean,
you're going to hit something.
Put your eyes on the road, damn it.
Right. At least if her body had been propped up so he could like see it in the rear view mirror or something. But no, he's just like, oh, what's going on down there?
and he's driving. He didn't stop. It's not like
right.
It was not like he's at a red light and then he stopped and stared and then and you could have did it that way. He stops and stares for the full 30 seconds of the red light and he keeps staring and someone honks behind him saying, "Hey," that's all you had to do. But
yeah,
it missed that parts of it as well. And you guys have really even just kind of lowered my opinion of this film. I hope you all are happy about that now.
No, but Mark, we didn't tell you this episode was an intervention.
Apparently so. No, and again, I didn't think it was like, wow. At least I don't think I did. I didn't watch my review back from 10 years ago because yes, that's how long I've been on YouTube, folks. I've actually got reviews from 10 and 15 fucking years ago. I do. I don't think I have a review, and then I look and go, oh shit, I reviewed that a while back. Okay, but it doesn't hold up now. It definitely tries to be edgy. You're right. It's trying to be more edgy than it isn't. They could have made some other decisions with it if they wanted to do it this way and bring something new. And at the end, it somewhat ends up a lesser film than the first one. Now that I'm talking to you guys,
that's another thing about it is it felt like you couldn't decide if it wanted to be a little classier than Maniac at times,
right,
or more violent and more disgusting.
Because as we mentioned, the relationship between Joe and Anna actually, until we get to the fucking boyfriend boot drop, it's actually written better here than it was in the first one. The relationship, the natural building of their relationship felt a little bit better in this one, until you suddenly find out, oh, he has a boyfriend. And then the boyfriend confronts him in the bathroom and goes, yeah, she doesn't mind her gay friends. And he's like, I'm not gay. And the guy just looks at him like, yeah, good talk. I'm like, what the fuck?
Wipe his hands.
Yeah.
On his shit.
And I'm just like, so she's going out with this asshole. I'm like, so now we got this kind of weird triangle thing. And then we find,
it never becomes that either.
But it doesn't. And, she has a friend, who you almost feel like she wants to, you almost get the implication she thinks Frank is gay, though she never asks him, because she has her gay friend over, and it almost is like, oh, hey, did you two meet?
Talking about a Sparkle toothpaste commercial.
But it's not handled well enough, like just about a lot of the things in here, to where if that's what they were going for, they don't get that idea completely across. So in the end, it becomes very muddled. A lot of things. Yeah.
And that character wouldn't date a jerk like that. I'm sorry.
No, he wouldn't.
In the
No.
arts,
No.
To date a complete just scuzz bucket like that. I mean, okay, no.
There are a lot of scuzz buckets who have a lot of arm candy. That's all I'm saying.
I dated them too.
No, my issue with that kind of climactic scene in her apartment, two problems. One, she's either an up and coming artist who is really relying on this big shot in New York, or she can afford a friend's apartment. I don't know what, like, that place was massive and it was nice. And she didn't have a roommate apparently, but the other thing is the gay best friend or whatever, he comes back to help her out when, I guess when he hears the screaming, comes in with a baseball bat, takes a meat cleaver to the mouth, and it's a pretty deep cut. I'm like, okay, that's the end of him, until he stands up and starts swinging with a baseball bat. I'm like, no, adrenaline's one thing, like taking a meat cleaver probably almost all the way back to your brain is quite another.
If you didn't sever the artery in the tongue, it's possible. Not probable. Probable. Possible.
Okay. I'm not talking about dying. I'm talking about the trauma of, oh my God, I just took a meat cleaver to the mouth and then got thrown across the room.
The thing with the meat cleaver to the mouth, though, is that swing doesn't make sense given their fight. That's not the first, swing that you're going to go for. I mean, you got to meat cleaver. Come down on... Okay, yes, I'm from Wisconsin. I am not implicating myself in anything, okay? I'm just saying that if you're going to cut someone with a meat cleaver... Going like this to the mouth to make him an extra and smile later on just does not. That just didn't feel. That felt like, oh, we're gonna go for a shocking injury kill, though? Not a huh?
Wasn't it? It was just a wild swing, wasn't it? I thought he got hit with the bat and then just came up and.
Oh, that's true. He did do So that
it wasn't
that is
like
true.
a targeted, but it was a pretty. That was a nat 20.
Yeah, it was a nat 20. He rolled a nat 20 on his melee skill and took advantage of it and had it play out his way.
Because whenever I'm in a knife fight, I've got the knife on this way and swipe it, but I haven't been in a knife fight in a long time.
Y'all are confessing some stuff. I understand your critique of the meat cleaver because everyone knows you want to slice vertically and not horizontally because otherwise the skin, you got to make the best leather, peel it off the
Right.
meat.
Well, yeah.
He doesn't like
strips.
man's leather, so I mean,
yeah. Well, and out of all the weapons, he chooses a meat cleaver. He literally has a couple stabby weapons, but instead he chooses the meat cleaver. That's not what you want to go after for someone with a bat. I love this conversation. I think
I'm not implicating myself in anything.
This podcast is a work of fiction.
Joe is taking a snack seat. He's like, I am not implicating myself in anything. If this comes up as
fight.
if this comes up as evidence later, I am not going to participate whatsoever. I was not in that conversation, officer. I think we're going to be no longer in this conversation tonight, too. I think we're going to wrap it up here for the 2012 Maniac. It's been an interesting month for the Multiple Maniac films. I'm glad we did this, looking at films from that all are titled Maniac, because one thing's for sure, even between that one and the remake, they all ended up being fairly different in their takes on the title character of Maniac. And all of them, various degrees. And I think still one of the better Maniacs is the Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. But anyway, story.
Yeah, that 34 Maniac blew my mind the second go around. I'm like, oh, wow.
Yeah, definitely. That one was wild. So we're gonna wrap it up here. I want to thank my panel. Thank for our live viewers tonight. Thankful for all of you out there who are still listening to our wonderful podcast as we discuss films from all ages and ranges and names and whatever theme I come up with. And next month, it's going to be She's the Trickiest, as we look at 4 Marlene Dietrich films next month.
That's the best thing I've ever heard in my life.
That sounds like a Jeopardy category.
It
does sound, now that you mention it. But yes, next month will be She's the Trickiest month, as we look at 4 Marlene Dietrich films from 4 different decades. So that's how we're looking at it there. So hope you tune in for that. And now this is where I give my panel the license to shill. So the floor is yours, Joe. You're first. Shill away, sir.
Well, Joe Randazzo with the Literary License Podcast. The next couple episodes we're going to be discussing, for a David Lynch episode, we're going to be doing Dune from 1984. Paul Verhoeven movies, we're going to be doing The Fourth Man. Bela Lugosi is going to continue. I promise we're taping Dracula and Murders in the Rue Morgue at some point soon. It just keeps getting pushed back because people's schedules. And then after that, the next 2 films would be, I think, White Zombie and Mark of the Vampire.
Oh.
So yeah, that's what we've got coming up.
Nice, sweet. And Angelique, my dear, what you got to shill?
Honestly, nothing.
Nothing right now. No, you can taking it easy, huh?
We're still recovering from the storms and everything. It was a pretty bad scene. Thankfully, personally, I only lost a fridge full of food. A lot of people had a lot worse. So Monsters, Madness, and Magic is kind of on a hiatus right now because Justin and the guys up in Aiken and the Augusta area are slowly recovering power and internet in some spots. So
yeah, he said he still didn't have, he barely got internet. He had to go somewhere for internet because he hasn't done any interviews lately and such. So
yeah, it's been almost 3 weeks now, and like my dad went without power for 18 days.
Wow.
And that meant also no water because he's on the well. So it's been rough, and the season's not over yet, so I still have my my MREs and my bottle of water and my little fire stove. So.
Well, Angelique, if you ever feel inclined, the Midwest welcomes you. We occasionally have a derecho or occasionally have tornadoes, but other than that, wind and cows is what we
Yeah.
got up here.
If I've got to run, I know where to
freezing
go.
lately.
Huh?
We've been freezing the last couple of years. We've gotten that negative 15-degree day here and there.
Not as many. The ones with climate change, we haven't gotten as many sub-zero years, at least in Wisconsin, that we used to have. We
When
got
does
a
the
lot
snow
more rain.
start?
Huh?
When does
It depends.
Whatever
The
feels
last couple of years, snow, like a substantial snow, actually hasn't started till like end of December into January, and sometimes not even until February. The seasons have kind of shift. So we're
I'm terrified of the snow.
You're terrified of the snow, really? Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, that's true. I'm sorry. You're a southern you're a southern lady.
I am but a Georgia peach.
And Georgia peaches don't like frost on them.
We sure don't, I tell you. No, but I'm still slowly but surely trying to get the Tub of Terror back on track. Otherwise, just take a look on Facebook. I post madness there on a regular basis. So.
Fantastic. Well, I hope things improve for everyone there in your area, and you, and for Justin and all our friends out down south, still feeling those impacts from those hurricanes and flooding and such, for sure. So we definitely thinking about you, and hope you get your resources back. It looks like things are moving faster because people have kind of unified in a lot of areas and just said, yeah, fuck it, we're just going to do it ourselves.
Yeah, pretty much. Like 2 of the towns I used to go to on a regular basis when I lived up in Tennessee don't exist anymore.
Wow.
They're underwater, gone. You know?
Well, didn't mean to bring everyone down a bit.
Yeah.
Hopefully we didn't.
Maniac, guys. Woo!
But the better news is that you're good, your dad's good, a lot of people are good, and you're getting every day a little better, hopefully, for you.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
So, Ian, what you got? How do you follow that, right? No,
I don't. So I'll just launch right into the plug. I'm Ian Simmons. I run Kicking the Seat, which you can find at kickseat.com and also on YouTube. Do roundtable reviews and live streams. Like this Wednesday, we're going to be talking about Hellboy, the Crooked Man, which went straight to I guess streaming, and see, that'll be our Halloween Eve episode, so very excited about that. And otherwise I'm here on Monday nights talking to Mark and the fine company, the fine X-Men panel he's assembled to talk about these great movies. I'm excited about the Marlene Dietrich month, because I am woefully understudied in her film, so that'll be really exciting.
Same here. I've seen none of the four, so.
The one I did pick, because I picked different decades, is the one I did pick for our final week will also be the last film she was in. So I'm not sure how much she was in, because I haven't actually watched that one, but I did pick it because she is in it and it was her last film, and I thought it would be fun to interesting to discuss. She's in it with David Bowie, The Last Gigolo. So yeah, which blew me away. I'm like, or Just a Gigolo, excuse me. Just a Gigolo. So that surprised me. I'm like, David Bowie and Marlene Dietrich, I've got to cover it. That's a spoiler room must right there. I'm like, geez. So
I feel like they cast the wrong David. Like maybe it should have been David Lee Roth.
Maybe.
Yeah, you said Just a Gigolo, and everywhere
That's exactly where my brain went. Crazy from the Heat.
Yeah. Sorry. So yeah, that's the actual title of it. Is Just a. But anyway, yeah, we're covering a Western next week. The Spoilers, starring Marlene Dietrich. So, hey, you never know what we're going to cover here on the Spoiler Room. It's whatever my twisted brain comes up with. And luckily enough, I have wonderful folks like yourself to talk about it, and wonderful listeners out there who keep coming back. And if you're interested and didn't see it, I did post an interview. I got a chance to talk to Anastasia Elfman again. We talked about her love of Lon Chaney Sr., her passion, her almost obsession with Lon Chaney Sr. It was a great discussion. She has an event that ended up getting postponed, but she's still getting it scheduled to where she does a live performance before the film of Phantom of the Opera, which is showing its 99th anniversary. She does this for her entertainment. She did it for Bloody Bridget. She also does it for Forbidden Zone, because she is married to Richard Elfman, and she does like this live performance, almost like a Burley type show before the showing of the movies, and it's usually themed to the movie that they're about to show. So apparently she's got a Suspiria one she mentioned she in her back pocket as well. So but that's her art, her niche, and it's very entertaining. I've seen a couple of videos. So yeah, so we have that interview up there. So look for that. Got a lot of great interviews, episodes. Yeah, do all the like and subscribes and all that here. Thank you so much. I will stop now. And until next time, we'll just say a good night, everyone.
Good
Good night.
Good night. And look out for Maniacs.